varies anywhere from 20 miles to 120 miles. There's usually some gravel somewhere, usually around construction date or
That's
whatever.
just because of the
Right,
construction.
right. Yeah, there's no base, there's no planned gravel on the Alabama, though.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah.
A lot of
At least two we
We
don't
had
have.
that big celebration, was it 96?
I'm sure you've heard it.
Years.
No, it's okay.
I think that's when they got rid of the last of it.
Ah, okay.
And they had bicycle. That was a pretty awesome road.
I don't know, I thought we chatted.
Well, just start, thank you for coming. And this is like 565 or something like that. Town hall meetings that we've done over time, and the reason is to hear from you folks. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on in Washington. The Syrian thing is getting all the interest, it seems like right now. I personally can see no justification at this point for going in there. And I see no overall policy. I don't know what the end game is. Nobody knows. So it was surprising yesterday when the president said he had declared a red line.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this president.
Oh, come on.
For him to say it.
I just.
He didn't
and
say
And
it.
it's America's red line and Congress's red line, but not his.
Yeah.
That's no responsibility for anything.
No, that obviously is taking a lot of the oxygen out of the air, but there's immigration, there's farm bill, there's all of the different things that we're to be dealing with. The end of the month is the end of the fiscal year, and there are no appropriation bills done. The Senate hasn't done anything. We've done 4. My appropriation bill that I chair, we have gone through most of it on the floor. We just have probably another couple hours of debate left on that before it would be completed. But what we're heading for is a continuing resolution at the end of the month to keep the government funded probably until early December. Then the debt ceiling hits. Treasury Secretary estimates that at about mid-October sometime, and that's really going to be where if there's a big agreement, a debate, that's where it's going to come, and that's where the sequester is going to be addressed, and all those things that have real impact as far as funding going forward. I'm here to listen.
Can we talk about immigration?
We can talk about anything you would like.
We took, and you're aware that what goes on in the Des Moines Register, you have your little clips. You know, today I think it was on that's it, shutting down government.
Right.
Yesterday was, I forget what it was. Was it on immigration? Or the day before was on immigration? Would you just kind of bring us up to date where that is? Because of course, my whole profession was law enforcement. You know, I done 32
Come on,
years.
join us.
Come on up, Frank.
We're just
Just drag your chair up.
join us.
Yeah.
Get a chair.
Bring the chair up. You know my wife?
Yeah. How are you? Good to see you. Well, where we are, the Senate obviously has passed their version. That will not, as it is, come to the floor of the House. And there's a lot of different reasons, but one of them being there's about $50 billion of new spending in that for 20,000 more border patrol and all those type of things that is probably not necessary. You know, obviously, if you're going to secure the border, it's going to take some investment down there. But what the House is going to do, the first bill out of the chute will be on border security, so you have actual true metrics that are independently verified that the border is in fact secure. And not by Congress will have to vote to agree with the findings of the independent group. Then you'll find improvement in the verification of, for employers as far as their employees.
For the documented ones,
Right.
okay?
The E-Verify system is there, but it's not foolproof by any means. You're gonna have to find a way to, the enforcement for employers is very important. Also, there's no way today that we're able to really track people. About 40% of the undocumented people in the country today came into the country legally. They were either students or visitors or something, and should we say they forgot to go home. But there's no way of tracking them today.
You're saying they come in on a visa,
Right.
40% of them?
Those are the ones that
Number I
are
read,
undocumented
I
today.
imagine it'd be that high.
It is.
Okay.
A lot of students, a lot of visitors. I was at the St. Patrick's Day luncheon with the ambassador, actually the president, prime minister of Ireland, and the president was there, and the speaker hosted. And the prime minister of Ireland says, Boehner says, John, he says, what's going on with immigration? Why would you be concerned? He said, well, I've got about 50,000 of my Irish brothers who came to visit the U.S. but forgot to go home.
Give me their names.
Yeah. And it's not, but that's a big problem. I mean, we can solve a lot of problems. We can just track where these people are, and the ones that should go back home. You go to California, there's a lot of the Portuguese population came to visit the state. And so that's part of it, certainly. Eric Cannon, the majority leader, is what calls the KIDS Act. These small children that were brought into the country undocumented with no fault of their own, their parents brought them in, have lived here maybe for 15, 20 years, don't know anything, but this is home. To maybe have some way for them to, some compassion basically with them, to have them find some kind of status.
Some kind of status, meaning citizenship or?
No, legal status at this point.
Okay,
Within, within probably a way, a pathway at least. Unlike their parents who committed a crime coming across the border, they would not, they'd be held harmless in that regard.
Okay. So you're saying, if I read you right, this, if anything comes out of the Senate bill, it'll come out in sections, one at a time. Okay, good. Good.
You know, I may be completely naive about this, but is it really necessary to do anything about immigration at this point in time until the border is absolutely secure? Because we always hear promises about the border secure, we're working on it, it never happens.
No, if we would enforce the law back from 1986, we wouldn't have the problem.
And stop, bringing lawsuits against states that are trying to enforce the federal law.
No, the problem with the 86 was that we gave citizenship, or at least legal status to all those people, but then didn't do the other part that was supposed to enforce the employers and also secure the border. So we did the one part first, and then we didn't, it was never followed up.
So we need to learn from that and secure the borders first,
Right.
and do nothing else besides that.
Exactly what that was. And it has to be independently verified, and we'll actually have to vote to say, yes, in fact, the border is secure before any of this other stuff happens.
And that's gonna take a while to figure that out. So I can, do you wanna continue on with the immigration?
Well, I just want to know, is there anything that we can do against employers, tax-wise, that hire illegals or undocumented?
I mean, yeah, you certainly could increase penalties, whether it be through the tax code or some kind of criminal civil penalties, which would be a problem. I mean, that's been one of the big problems we've had this magnet and employers basically. You look at what happened up in Postville, it's in my own district. That they had a pipeline to Guatemala directly. practically everybody that worked in that plant illegally all came from the same community in Guatemala. And they were, obviously, that's why he's in prison today, is because it was just total fraud, basically, what he was doing. And that they just, they had a pipeline directly to their plant, knowingly. You look at back in the old days, like in Storm Lake, when it was high grade, and then IBP took over, and that's when it all changed. They were bringing busloads of people up for low wages, basically. That used to be the best job in Storm Lake Valley.
Oh, yeah. She has a trooper up there in 65, in June City, yeah.
You were like 16?
About 14. But we had the same thing in South Sioux. Iowa Pack, who owned it then? IBP, yeah. I mean, the interstate was just awash with them, you know. So I understand that really good.
Well, and you know, there are, we have to be careful too. There are some younger people who actually are doing illegal, bringing drugs and contraband into the country also. We just find a way to sort that out.
Sure. But as long as there's a market for it up there, they'll bring it.
You'll find a way.
Yeah. So I want to pivot to what was the elephant in the room before President Assad gave us a bigger elephant in the room. Obamacare. I had an interesting thing the other day. I brought this up the other night at our dinner. I got a nice little letter from Walmart the other day. Now, I'm self-employed. I buy my own insurance. And got a nice little letter from Walmart the other day that says, oh, remember that whole thing about keeping your plan if you'd like to do it? He was kidding. Needless to say, I wasn't very happy. So, anyway,
What, are they canceling you or something?
they said I have until, basically they amended my policy now to where I have until the end of the year next year, since they pushed all the enforcement back, to find a Obamacare compliant healthcare plan, which implicitly means that the one that I've got is not.
We're gonna defund it. So is Congress gonna work to defund it and stop this?
What we are going to vote on the financial services appropriations bill, which will prohibit health and human services from transferring a large amount of money over to the IRS to enforce it. Now, the reality is that the Senate will never take that, and the President will never sign it. So, and 85% of the funding for the healthcare bill is actually mandatory spending, not subject to annual appropriations. So even if we would defund that 15%, still 85% of it would still be enacted. Senator Cruz from Texas came up with this idea of defunding or shutting the government down. And they asked him, well, that takes 60 votes in the Senate, right? And do you have 60 votes? No, I don't have 60 votes in the Senate. So what is your plan to do this? Well, the brave senator says, let the House go first. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, I
want to repeal it, replace it as much as anybody. But this is the president's signature issue. He'll never sign anything that would repeal it or.
Without that other 15%, would Obamacare survive? Would, I mean, it could still.
Right. Oh, yeah.
As I understand
It
it,
would be enacted, yes.
part of the mandatory spending is all the new IRS agents that they're gonna need.
Well, that we can prohibit the transfer fund. Most of it is just the implementation, setting up all these exchanges, all the, what the federal government's doing as far as rules and regulations. Now, the enforcement part, because of what, and the IRS thing is probably not as big an issue for a year because, number one, the employer mandate is delayed. But also, he said that we're not going to check anybody's records, if we're gonna see honor system for individuals, even though that mandate is not the way, we're not gonna actually look and verify.
Well, some
So
affordable
there's-
care, because I'm not gonna get to keep my health insurance, which I pretty much figure means I'm gonna have to buy something that costs twice as much, at least.
Well, young, single people.
Oh, we get hosed. We get totally hosed. Since
Or young people in general.
Since passage of the Affordable Care Act, my insurance is up 60-odd%. And I talked to my insurance agent the other day, and I was buying car insurance. And I mentioned my health insurance, and she grabs me by the arm, and she just starts laughing. She goes, just hold on. She says, if you don't double or triple next year, we'll be surprised. And frankly, if my health insurance doubles or triples next year, I'm gonna be uninsured, because I can't afford it.
What's a $95 penalty if you don't?
That seems a lot cheaper.
Eventually, it goes
Is it $95 a month penalty
a year.
a year?
Yeah, it
That
ratchets
is cheap.
up, I think in about 4 or 5 years, it'll be up to like $600, $700, something like that.
Mhm.
Still cheap.
Yeah.
It is, and especially if you have guaranteed issuance, you get sick, you can go buy a policy.
Let's see, if my health insurance doubled this year.
If you go to the hospital, you're gonna, they take care of you anyway,
Right.
you know?
And after all of this, there'll still be 30 million people in the country uninsured.
Well, that's what I didn't
And they
figure.
don't care.
No, they don't.
And
They
most
don't
people
care.
don't understand that
They
though,
don't-
they
Yeah.
they don't
keep
care.
hearing that, you know, everybody will have insurance, and they don't hear that.
There's
when-
about 22 million people they expect to actually have insurance that don't currently. There'll still be 30 million people.
Right, they're counting all the people that are gonna be uninsured when they can't afford their insurance anymore.
They're gonna be in a bigger mess than England.
That's the trick.
Congressman, so we're looking kind of 3 years down the road, next presidential election. At that time, when some people are addicted to Obamacare, free health care, can you take it away from them?
I think there'll be such an outcry myself to.
You think that you can draw it back? Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
well,
don't.
there are certain parts of it actually everybody agreed on anyway, as
Right.
far as the uninsured or the guaranteed access part of it, taking the cap off and catastrophic losses. I mean, everybody, that was not even controversial. Having people to be able to stay on their parents' policy longer was not an issue. Probably how old at that point maybe was a point of debate. But pre-existing conditions, catastrophic stuff, that is something that we're all, but, and it was part of our proposal rather than, you know, when they passed the healthcare bill, we had an alternative, which would be shocking to a lot of folks, but actually introduce competition into the marketplace. Did you read today that there's only gonna be one company in the exchange in Iowa?
Yeah.
Which is a new co-op or something that,
I thought there was supposed to be two.
there were, but one of them was probably pulling out. It was-
Really?
It was a
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
subsidiary, I think, of Aetna,
Yeah.
that they're probably gonna pull out. That'll leave one, which I think is David Lyons, this co-op that he puts together.
Oh, yeah.
The former insurance commissioner,
Really?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you have competition in the exchange if you only have one?
Yeah, co-op.
It's not, that's the purpose of it. They don't want competition. The purpose is the government to control everything ultimately. I mean, it's all falling into place. Everything's falling into place, just perfectly. You know, you run out all the insurance companies, you have the government controlling everything. That's the whole point.
Didn't Reed say the other day, this is just a stop on the road to single payer?
Yeah, and then when we get that, we don't have to worry about any
Senator Harkin said
Republican running
Davis
for
passed.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the first step.
I called his office the day I got that letter. That was a fun phone call. I called Bruce Braley's office too. That was a
Did you?
little more fun
I
phone
talked to
call.
Bruce Brown.
Well, I started in on this gal and she says, all right, you know, well, let me take down your information, and I gave her my address, and she says, is that in the 1st district? I said, no, it's in the 3rd. Well, you should probably contact your congressman. And I said, my congressman didn't vote for this HEPA, and hung up the phone.
Can we talk a little bit about government shutdown? Go ahead.
This is so much, I was there in '95 when we had the partial government
Okay.
shutdown.
Yeah.
We had already funded defense and veterans and their pensions and healthcare and all that. That was a partial shutdown. If in fact we get into this confrontation here at the end of the month, it is a total government shutdown. I just morally myself, we have men and women overseas fighting right now, and to not have money for them, for their families at home, not take care of veterans here, I think is not, whether you agree with the idea of using that as leverage or not, it's not a sustainable position.
Would that shut down air travel?
It should have been. Well, they could deem it essential, but then you wouldn't get paid.
So you gotta go to work and not get paid. Be a lot of sickness, wouldn't there?
Would shut down the president from going on all his vacations or not?
He would be deemed essential.
Yeah, he would be essential.
For a vacation?
Well,
Playing golf?
but no, I just don't think that position, as much as I agree with them wanting to repeal it and the healthcare bill and dramatically fix it so we have competition in the marketplace, it's not a sustainable position.
So on a scale of 1 to 1995, how bad is this continuing resolution gonna be?
No, the continuing resolution is basically for 2 months, we'll continue funding at current levels. Won't change.
So no big throwdown on this one.
No, where,
Fast forward 2 months.
where everything, I know, but that gets us, where the real debate is and potential for getting something actually done is with the debt ceiling,
Yeah.
which is, according to Treasury Secretary, about mid-October, he's saying. And that's where you're gonna have the sequester that Republicans hate because it cuts, half of it cuts defense. Probably the more liberal people hate it because it cuts the social welfare programs. And the administrator, the president, even though it was his idea, and he insisted on the sequester to be part of the Budget Control Act. He hates that. He absolutely does, because it defunds a lot of it, cuts money for a lot of his special debt programs. That's where the pressure point is. That's where I think you have an opportunity to actually do something at a much larger scale in total. We're not gonna go along with increasing taxes, but he's gonna, we probably won't get as much of budget cuts as what we would like to see. But the sequester is really a dumb way of cutting spending.
Yeah, it
Chooses
is.
on the-
Sure it
It's
is.
just like Calder's 10% cut.
Mhm.
I mean, you're cutting everything that's necessary along with stuff that's
But you're
not
not-
necessarily redundant.
But you're not cutting what they had this year, you're cutting what they're gonna get next year. I mean, we're talking, isn't that correct? Or are you cutting, are
Well,
you
we
cutting what you
actually,
got?
on the discretion, federal budget, 2/3 of which is mandatory spending, entitlement spending, and included in that's about $250 billion of interest on the debt. The other third of the budget, which is discretionary, and defense is in there, that's about over half now of the discretionary budget, is where we've cut in the last 3 years about $100 billion out of that. So that actually is what you're talking about as far as sequester. That's all discretionary. The other, the 900-pound gorilla in the room is all the mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Farm Bill, Highway Bill, all of the mandatory accounts that just go unfunded, whether you make any change on an annual basis or not. Discretionary is subject to annual appropriations, the rest of it has life and so on.
Okay, but the two-thirds that you have there, every year, what is the percentage that it increases?
That
Is there a
increase 7, 8,
mandatory,
9,
is it a mandatory increase that's written in the bill?
It's entitlement. If you qualify, you are entitled to the benefit. There are 10,000 baby boomers like myself registering, signing up for Social Security and Medicare every day. 70,000 wait, this is gonna go on for at least 2 more decades. Baby boomers going into it. And that's why, I mean, it will continue to grow at that rate and continue to squeeze out everything else. And that's why just very modest reforms of those programs today have an enormous impact. You know, like what the president proposed in the Consumer Price Index, minute change for benefits. The benefits wouldn't increase as fast for Social Security. It saves about $300 billion the first 10 years, but the second 10 years it's probably $1.5 to $2 trillion savings. And actuarially, it just explodes. It's kind of like the miracle of compound interest over time, you know, working for you or against you.
Yeah.
Are all those pension funds being funded? How far are we behind?
No, we're probably, I mean, that's, everybody talks about, you know, $16.7 trillion national debt, or that's where the debt ceiling is today. The reality is unfunded liabilities, we probably, I've heard a lot of different estimates, probably from 70 to $100 billion, or trillion dollars.
70 to 100 trillion?
Dollars of unfunded liabilities. They don't, the federal employee pensions aren't funded, veterans pensions aren't, veterans health, and none of this stuff is funded.
Does that include state and local pensions too? That's just federal?
Over the next 50 years, yeah.
As Clell tries to quantify that.
Wow.
Well, okay,
No, it's
so,
what's on the books is small in comparison to the liabilities we actually have out there. They're the promises that are made today that are not done.
Yeah.
this may seem trivial, but why did the legislature exempt themselves from Obamacare? I mean, I don't think, if Obamacare is for most of us, you know, or all of us here, then I think Obamacare should be for everybody. I mean, everybody, every single person that is in this country should have to live under the same umbrella.
The Grassley Amendment included members of Congress and their staff. We are included. We are going into the exchange.
Okay, I thought they were just exempted from the exchange.
The only question was whether or not the federal government continues to subsidize like any other employee benefit. If you work for a private company, they pay a portion of the premium, and they're going to continue to do that. It's about 72%, I think, that the federal government pays today to my insurance, my health insurance, which I have a real Blue Cross Blue Shield policy. Who's exempt? Everybody in the administration. All of the executive branch is totally exempt. Every department in the federal government is exempt. And you know who else exempted themselves? The people who wrote the bill, the committee staff and leadership staff exempted themselves.
Okay, so
But we are part, we're in the exchange.
can somebody not propose some bills out there that makes a big issue about this to make sure that they cannot exempt
I
themselves?
think you'll hear a lot more
Yeah,
about that.
because, you know, I think a lot of times that the Republicans cannot get their message out, they can't explain themselves. You know, if the news media hates the Republicans, I mean, that's, you know, they'll lie, they'll disclude things that are, you know, they'll make things appear to be negative for the Republicans and positive for the Democrats, the way it's written, the words that are used. And so I think that it's important that the Republicans need to be able to express themselves and just in a few sentences or a paragraph, have their talking points, get the same thing out over and over and over again, rather than be on the offense or the defense all the time. Get on the offense. You know, start, you know, we're always apologizing, we're always being the nice guy, we're always thinking that everybody's gonna understand us, but it's not the same game as it was when Tip O'Neill was, you know, was in the legislative body. It's not the same game, it's not the same people, it's not the same integrity. honesty. It's
No,
bad, you know,
I
it's bad.
absolutely agree that we have a terrible time communicating. We think we said something once that people have altered it.
But you know,
And they are-
it's so frustrating, it's so frustrating.
They
how
use
this
emotion rather than
Yes,
facts.
that's right, that's right. And we need to have people say the facts over and over again, because the news media will not do it. They won't do it. And if people are worried, they're frustrated, they're scared, they're angry, you know, and we rely on you guys. And Boehner, it's like he's just a whack guy, you know, you can just sort of whack him back and forth, and it's embarrassing. You know, Tom, what was it, Daschle? He never stopped thinking that he was the one whose party was in charge, even when he wasn't in charge. I mean, he made trouble all the time, you know, and we just don't do anything. We don't appear to do anything, and I know some of that is because the news reporter won't report it. You know, but I think that if it's just talking points, it's the same thing over and over again, that maybe people will understand it. And when people throw out, like, you know, talking about trillions of dollars and percentages and everything, people, they just blank out on that.
That's right.
They just blank out on it.
And they'll talk about a kid having trouble getting food or something.
Mhm.
And that's,
Yeah.
that's the argument's
Mhm.
over.
Mhm.
And it's, using emotion is something we have a really hard time doing. It's something, yeah, but
But we don't need emotion, we need facts. That's what we need the facts. You know, and we need to teach people that your emotions are being manipulated. People aren't learning that. They're thinking, you know, they really don't have any idea of how they're being played like a fiddle. You know, and what's gonna happen is, we're losing our country to people who just manipulate and are running our country on emotion. And so then what's gonna happen is, we're not gonna have to worry about another Republican being elected. And that's where we're heading.
You know, on my desk, I have a little sign taped there, big letters, emotion has no intelligence. And part of our problem, I think what you're trying to articulate, is the fact that we have so many factions within our party. You know, when you got the Tea Party in there, and it just bounce back and forth, no compromise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's damn difficult to get anything passed. You know, at the state level, I can only imagine you got, what, 435? Trying to herd them in one direction would be really difficult.
But we eat our own.
That's where you
Well,
need strong
we
leadership.
eat our own. You know, when you have a Democrat that does something that's you know, pornographic or into pornography or whatever, the Democrats, they all swoop around him and it's okay, no problem with that. You have a Republican that does it, the Democrats swoop all over the Republican, all right? And so do the Republicans. In fact, they're
I would say
sometimes
the
even
Republicans
worse to the
swoop.
Republican. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like they expect us to be perfect. We're not perfect by any range. You know, we're all sinners. We're all as bad as.
Yeah,
I know.
We gotta,
He's a good guy. He's a good guy, but I mean, let's.
we got a situation in the Iowa Senate, Ken Sorensen, he's a Republican. He's not a good person to have in our party. And yet, when the Senate Republicans put party ahead of principle, and that's what they're doing, it's wrong. If you got a cancer in you, you cut it out. You don't wait for somebody else to do it. You get rid of it as quick as possible, and they're not doing it. They're sitting on their hands. And they're talking about leadership, none in that party, in the Senate, in my opinion.
But sometimes it doesn't have to be played out in the public arena. You know, I mean, as far as going on the news media or going in the newspaper and, you know, and expressing it there. Gather a bunch of Republicans together and cut the cancer out a little more privately. You know, that's the whole thing. Is I just see a lot sometimes Republicans are grandstanding. You know, I doubt that they have gone to that person that they're belittling in their own party personally and talked to them first. You know, that's the right, I mean, that's the right thing to do. If I have a gripe with Ryan, you know, I'm not griping. If I have a gripe with Ryan, I'm not gonna go to you, Clell, you know, or Claude, or I'm not gonna go to you guys and tell you about my gripe with Ryan and then talk about it in a cafeteria so everybody can hear it. I'm gonna first go to Ryan and try to straighten it out.
What are you gonna do second?
Second, if Ryan doesn't start, well, I'm gonna try several times. It's a good 3 times. if you
Fourth
guys-
time.
The 4th time after that,
Go to the cafeteria.
then I might go to the cafeteria.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
So
saying.
then after me with a blunt object
Then I
long
might go to
before
the, then I
then.
might go to the cafeteria, yeah. You know, but I mean, but it's not gonna be the
What did
first,
you
second, or
do?
third time.
Hit the wrong note, playing the
Apparently. So,
I can't think of a thing, Ryan, honestly, I can't think of a thing.
well, you're the only one. So I want to make a quick right turn on red here. You brought up Syria at the beginning of the meeting here. I wanted to kind of return back there. It seems like, I don't know if we've entered the twilight zone or what, because I seem to recall 10 years ago, the Democrats and the president and his party, they were all about not removing dictators that used weapons of mass destruction on their people. And all of a sudden,
Well, there's no stated policy to remove Assad now.
which is even scarier.
It makes you wonder,
Who's gonna come
what
in?
is
Right.
what is our
Right.
policy? Why are we doing this?
What policy do we have? Yeah.
Who's the good guys over there?
There's nobody,
See, that's,
there's nobody good.
We got a guy
likes to-
sitting back there
you know?
saying, well, we'll fund it, we're gonna do it.
Who lets the Christians, you know, practice their religion? I think Assad did, Gaddafi did, Mubarak did, and now the Christians are being murdered. They're being crucified in Egypt. Crucified, I mean, they're being murdered, and, you know, they at least allowed the Christians to have their own religion. So they weren't